All right.
Yeah. So this time we're kind of turning the tables. Now it's my turn to ask you questions. And I'm kind of curious just about your Twitter handle to start with. The Mighty Thor. Why?
Oh, when in middle school, Thor was my favorite comic book character. And every time you try to create an account, it'll always tell you if you have a unique username, and I will put my name, and always someone else would have it. So I did a Mighty Thor, and I just changed the I to a 1. And 94 was when I was born, 1994. So no one ever uses that. So I'm good with that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I think that's true for many of us, at least of a certain age. We were kind of having to come up with these internet handles. So my brother, he was involved in the demo scene with Amiga. So they, of course, all had these cool, slightly gangster handles to show that they're elite hackers. And I certainly been playing around with Latinizing my last name, showing how pretentious I am as kind of one of my standard handles. But it's fun how we build our identities, also a little bit about who we want to be. So maybe one interesting question is, who do you want to be?
I want to be a scientist like you, but not in the same field. Your field is interesting, but I would want to be an astrophysicist because I think space stuff is cool. And yeah, it's part of why I like science fiction so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of my favorite sci-fi topics is anti-gravity / gravity control, because it would be the key to space travel. I know I told you a long time ago, I don't know if you remember, but I asked you the difference between sci-fi versus fantasy. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
And then I said, well, if artificial gravity was in a story, right, and you had, fusion power, it happens in stars because of gravity, Hawking radiation, wormholes. You said that would be more on the sci-fi side if it was at least semi-plausible.
Yeah, of course, sci-fi is interesting because you can go all the way from total fantasy sci-fi over to diamond hard sci-fi that only uses known laws of physics. And different readers and different authors kind of like being on different parts of the spectrum. But a lot of it is also about how much you're allowed to kind of cheat with the laws of physics. But of course, a good engineer will try to cheat the laws of physics anyway.
I don't know how many engineers there are that would love a perpetual motion machine or antimatter. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, no, they might be slightly different uses, of course. Antimatter, it might be a good thing that it's hard to make antimatter, but perpetual motion sounds like a pretty useful device.
Yeah, antimatter is also incredibly dangerous.
Yeah, which is, of course, why you can probably get defense funding for that project.
They actually did release a report on it. I don't know if you knew that.
I missed that.
They had a defense report on the uses of antimatter, and I read over it. It was talking about particle beam weapons, which, yes, we actually can produce particle accelerators and positron beams. And it was talking about power for satellite and propulsions. It was all real, but the problems were, making and storing it. Those were insurmountable barriers.
Yeah, I think the storage aspect is really annoying. Now, anti-gravity, on the other hand, is kind of a tricky one because we almost don't have any clue where to begin. Of course, we might just say, okay, let's begin with our theories of gravity, but they're not particularly helpful in this case.
Yeah. What was I going to say about antimatter? I was going to say something. Oh, yeah, because, well, we still don't know why matter prevailed over antimatter. I mean, one of the conditions has to be violating baryon number conservation. We still have never observed that ever. So anyone who figures that out, that's a Nobel Prize right there.
Yep. And that's probably true for practically all the really interesting things. There is a lot of vanilla Nobel Prizes kind of filling in the details and gaps in a theory. And then there are the ones that are super well deserved when you actually show, oh, we have been thinking wrong about it all the time. And this is how to do it. So I'm hoping that you're gonna one day end up there getting the prize from the Swedish Queen, and I can play tour guide in Stockholm.
Yeah, that will be good. Getting a Nobel Prize. Yeah, all scientists secretly want to make that big next discovery.
Yeah, and the annoying thing is, of course, that most of the time science isn't at all like that. After you'd made the discovery, you're in a very particular group that can claim to have succeeded. Most of the time, we're just standing around tearing our hairs. Why doesn't my code run? Why is this mouse not doing what it should be doing?
You know, science fiction is sort of a superhero because the scientists always figure out some miraculous discovery instantly.
Yeah, there is a genre of science fiction stories like the Andromeda Strain by Christian that actually deal with the discovery process, but typically they add extra drama because most of the time it's just boring. And most of the time it's okay, we're going down the dead ends left and right, and that doesn't work.
Yeah, I've seen the original Andromeda Strain. I mean, I'm no a medicine expert, but it seemed pretty interesting to me.
They actually used real equipment, which is really cool. They actually, most of the things in that movie were not props, but they just borrowed it from a lab. Which I think is important because science, quite often it's kind of done using props. So everybody thinks that chemistry always involves bubbling green liquids, while actual chemistry is usually clear liquids, which are terrifyingly toxic, but yeah, they don't look like anything.
Yeah.
But getting back to you, because you're a way more interesting topic than bubbling liquids. So it seems like, why did you get interested in astrophysics and gravity?
Because when I was younger, well, obviously I still see it now, but when I was younger, I would see a lot of suffering in the world. Poverty, homelessness, hunger, and most people, not everyone, but most people would like those things to go away, or at least I would like to believe that. And I think the main barrier to that is technology. For example, scarcity causes conflict, scarcity of energy, land, that causes all sorts of conflict. The conservation of energy produces all sorts of problems when you build a car or a rocket or just about anything. And I was just thinking, man, if there was some technology that could change the world, what would it be? And I made a list when I was in high school. I wrote down this. I wrote down a cure for male pattern baldness. I was in high school. So I said, if you make that, you will become rich. There is no doubt in my mind. 2, instant weight loss pill. I knew that wasn't possible, but that would make you rich too. 3, a cure for every disease. I know that's much more likely now that I've studied medicine a little more. And as I got into science fiction, I realized that gravity control would be up there too, because gravity, in essence, is what makes getting into space difficult. Because what are you doing? You're fighting gravity when you build a rocket to go up into space. And things like gravitational lensing and gravitational blue shifting, basically gravity would be the force field needed to deflect radiation. Because if you built a rocket that can move, say, 90% the speed of light, the Doppler blue shifting would kill you. And magnetic force fields are not going to help because photons they transmit electric charge, but they don't experience electrical fields. So it wouldn't do anything. It would just pass by a force field and kill you. And I was just researching science fiction and I realized that gravity manipulation would be the key to force fields and the equivalence principles. So if you can manipulate gravity, you could cancel inertia in a way and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I just kept that as the list.
Yeah, that was a pretty impressive list in high school, especially since you realize also the stuff that would make you rich, that would enable other stuff.
Yeah. I mean, a cure for male pattern baldness, I mean, that's like $1 trillion right there. But I know that's not possible.
I think there is probably some possibilities. It's just that in many ways I could imagine it's pretty boring. Imagine getting out of bed every morning thinking, okay, today maybe is the day I figure out a better cure for baldness. Yeah, maybe some people are really driven. Yeah, this is what I want to do. Certainly, there are some scientists who focus on a tiny, tiny problem and really go all out for it. And I envy them. But it's kind of cool to go for the really big and deep ones.
Yeah.
The problems that can really change the world.
Yeah, I'm taking a screenwriting class, a couple ones, starting a week from now. And I told the teacher, I was like, science fiction is my favorite genre. And she was like, well, cool. We'll write about, what you know and what you like. So yeah. I figured that would be good.
Yeah, I think science fiction is a great starting point when you start to think about your life. I wonder what the kids that don't read science fiction use to think about what they want to do when they grow up.
I don't know how it is in your country, but in America, they usually idolize astronauts, celebrities, and rich people. I mean, that's what they do, but
Yeah.
I don't know what it is in your country.
Well, it's about the same, I think. So you get various celebrities, and that's kind of not very useful. So I know my nephews are thinking that, well, being a YouTube influencer seems to be a cool thing, or at least a pro gamer online, which probably can make you money if you happen to be the pro gamer, but most of them don't make any money at all.
Yeah.
And even if they're brilliant at Counter-Strike or Fortnite, okay, how does that change the world? It's not likely that the textbooks in 100 years are going to talk about who the Fortnite champion of 2022 were.
Yeah, I think they just look at it as easy, free money. I think that's what it is, and not working in essence.
Yeah. In general, getting a sense of ambition early on, I think is super important. And then the right kind of ambition, because I think our grandparents might have said something about ambition to start our own business and making money or something like that. But actually, I think the real ambition is, oh, I want to change the part of the world that needs changing.
Yeah, and I think we all have that. We all have an ideal view of the world. Even rich people have their own view of what the world should be like. They may not say it out in the open, but they think it to themselves.
Yeah. Well, I actually had an encounter with a whole bunch of rich people this weekend. One of the perks of academic jobs is sometimes you get invited to hold after dinner speeches at fancy places. And it's interesting to talk to rich people because, yes, they're fairly ordinary, actually, frighteningly ordinary men. These were the ones that were trying to be philanthropic and trying to learn how to do that better. And they were selected, of course, because they would come to a speech given by yours truly, who is already means that they're kind of slightly special ones. But it's very nice to talk to people from different disciplines. One of the coolest things about being an academic, I think, is that sometimes you get a chance to talk to people in really weird places, like the military industrial complex. I happen to have seen it drunk. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
So that's another thing I really would advise you to try. Make sure that you're working kind of on your research, but make sure that you do some keynotes and after dinner talks in weird places, because both you might meet people who might fund you, but also it's so interesting to just see how they think.
Yeah, socialized network, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, I think many people just think that you should just randomly select your friends because you happen to like them. And I think that's totally good for the heart. It's kind of, yeah, you want to have good friends that you care about, but it's kind of good to know people. And sometimes strategically, I can ask for money or I can ask for things or advice. But sometimes it's just, how do they think? I remember getting seated at a meeting right next to a lady from Campus Crusade for Christ, which is kind of very far away from where I am, but it's kind of cool to talk to her and kind of figure out how does she see the world? How does this work? So how does a kind of gay transhumanist libertarian that worldview is very far away from her worldview, but maybe there are some points in common that might be good to know, and might be good to know the stuff to really not talk about at all.
Yeah, and also because I'm Black, I mean, I just see police brutality in America a lot, and I know that stems from a lack of being able to empathize with people too. And I think empathy and technology, I think, are the two main barriers in helping others, because it's easy to hate poor people as a rich person and vice versa. Easy to hate rich person as a poor person, you know? It's easy to hate women as a man and vice versa if you don't know what they're going through. And I think if people could just understand that we're all on the same planet and we all deal with problems and we all have feelings. So, I mean, if we just accepted that and learned to move forward, we would probably not have as many problems as we do. In fact, we probably would have way less crime if people knew if they had to receive crime they do in others, there'd be way less crime.
Yeah, I think you're right. Empathy is kind of a trainable skill to some extent. Some people have talent for it, but I think most of us can become better at it. And it's also kind of chilling for me, given the perspective I've been getting from Black Lives Matter, to realize that what my perspective is kind of, okay, I think I have a good understanding of the world, and then I get to see the Black perspective to some extent, to realize, okay, I was really wrong about a lot of my views. That is both very healthy and also, oh dear, now there is even more work to do.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's an interesting challenge on how to fix the world, or
it
even
is.
fix a small part of it.
It is. I don't think I could fix it by myself. I would need help, but I do think I can fix it.
Yeah, yeah. I think there is a lot of fear for just trying. So some people say, yeah, go for something standard, because then at least you know you are going to succeed. I mean, it would be horrible if you failed, but then again, not even trying might even be even more horrible.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's fear of trying is another thing that stops many people, because that's why people set easy goals, because they know they'll get them versus trying.
Mm.
Like this screenwriting class I'm taking, I've taken one before, but this one was actually a scholarship. So I double have to prove myself. If they're paying for it, I double have to prove it.
Yeah, that's so cool. Earlier you sent me a list of the books you're reading, and it's kind of, oh, this is a marvelous list of books, and I found several ones I want to have in my bookshelf too. But again, there takes a certain bravery to decide, okay, I'm totally going to learn quantum mechanics.
Yeah. Oh, you saw my list of books, huh?
Yeah.
I forgot to get my physical books. Are you busy after this interview, or would you have time?
Unfortunately, I'm headed for yet another meeting, but
Oh,
yeah, so we might have to just discuss the books. But one of the cool things I noticed there was they covered a lot of different disciplines, from mathematics over to relativity theory, over to astrophysics, to aerospace engineering. And I like that there is a kind of bravery in saying, okay, I'm totally going to try to learn in these fields, even though they're very different. That a lot of people would doubtless say, oh, this is really hard. Yeah, but it's worth trying.
yeah, it's worth learning. And I saw a sign in high school. I never was able to find the shirt that said physics is everywhere. And it had a person playing a guitar showing sound waves and sine. It really is everywhere. Computers, cell phones, medicine. So I hate when people make fun of nerds and like, oh, you're studying physics. And I'm like, if it wasn't for science, you would be freaking dead. If
Yeah.
people if doctors didn't know what medicines did what or the dosage, you'd be dead, and so on.
Yeah. It's interesting that physics to some extent has had to prove itself too, because we could build houses before we had good understanding of material science. And it happened somewhere in the 1700s, I think, because Euler did his famous calculation of the bending of columns, and he actually developed the earliest formulas for that. But the engineers, who kind of knew how to build stuff that held that work, didn't trust it for more than a generation until they saw that, okay, this is actually right. And then they took in physics. But it's become part of it, and that nerdy stuff is actually so powerful that we can go to the moon on it.
Yes, and I think that's how I want to inspire people, through empathy and through technology, hopefully making better technology.
Oh yeah. Yeah, having good empathy is quite useful for developing many technologies, because you need to understand how people will use them.
Yeah. So how do you like my answer so far?
I really like it, because a lot of it, you gave me this list of questions and I felt they were really bland. What does your ideal day look like? That's a great question, but it's kind of, it works for everybody. What excites you? We already know that, and so on. Many of them are neutral. I think it's more interesting to figure out who you are, and then through these conversations, because you've been asking me a lot about science fiction and science. And I think there is something interesting here, figuring out the links here to empathy and your ambitious plans. So where do you plan to go next?
I want to finish getting this degree in physics and then move on to a PhD at a university in physics. And the jobs don't look great, but I told my parents, if the jobs aren't great, there's always engineering, aerospace engineering. Yeah, so, and teachers are sorely needed everywhere, but especially in America. So I figure, I could try my hand at being a teacher or a researcher one day.
Yeah.
and just learning different engineering, aerospace or mechanical, because at the university that I want to go to, NC State, there those engineerings are combined into one department for whatever reason. Aerospace mechanical is combined into one. So that means I could major in one and minor in another,
Mm.
which would be cool to do.
Yeah, yeah, I think that is one of the important problems today, that typically university wants you to do one thing. And I think both of us want to do everything.
We don't have enough time, but yeah, we want to do everything. We don't
Yeah.
have enough time or brain power.
Oh yeah, this is why we want to get more time and brain power. This is totally why I wanted to research cognition enhancing drugs. And I really hope that we can get better search engines that quickly get us the right information we need. But I
Yes.
think there's also something about trying slightly different things like screenwriting and science. Knowing a few different domains also makes you more well-rounded as a person.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, like you said, a lot of people are focused on just doing one thing. When you really think about it, every person is more than one thing and is talented in more than one thing and likes to talk about more than one thing.
Mm.
So it's important to know what those are, because let's face it, if you're not interested in something, for me, it's just boring.
Yeah, and the problem is, of course, that too many people allow themselves to be uninterested in practically everything. I think it's so valuable to actually have interest, even if it's flickering between different topics.
Yeah, yeah. So here would be my interest, besides the ones you already know, science fiction and astrophysics. My family, I love my family. My mother, father, brother, sister. I have a dog. I love my dog too, in a different way, but still my family. And my health, I value that. Um, I haven't had a career like you. I've worked a couple restaurant jobs, and they expect me to put the job before my health, and I just let them know that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, yeah. So I once worked as a postman during school holidays, and that gave me a healthy appreciation of it's nice to have a desk job.
Yes, yes, because yeah, desk jobs, they pay more, but they're less physically demanding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course, by now I'm starting to realize, oh, desk jobs also means that you're getting out of shape. At least as a postman, I was running up and down stairs.
Yeah, yeah. I noticed that a lot of desk jobs and companies, they always have a little snack area where you can get too much food, too much coffee, and it's just too much. They need to limit that.
Yeah. So that gets to that interesting problem of deciding on how to live your life, actually setting up good habits. And I used to think that I had somewhat good habits. And then my husband got this app on his phone, and now he's losing weights and putting on muscles, and actually it's noticeably healthier. And that just because of a fairly good app, the health app. So there are ways of improving things. I think that's one of the cool things. Our lives are projects. We can actually come up with ways of boosting them.
Yes, yes, I like that. I listened to podcasts too about screenwriting, and one title I wrote in my little notebook is "Change is Inevitable," and I think that's key to learning in life is change. If you're the same, 5 years from now, you did something wrong if you didn't change at all, or if you weren't willing to change. So I think that's about life.
Yeah, so around my circles, there is quite a lot of interest in kind of crucial considerations, those insights that make you totally change direction or make you totally change perspective. So one of the most common questions I've gotten recently is, so what have you changed your mind about recently?
Yeah, yeah. You probably have a list of 100 things, right?
Yeah, but a lot of them are kind of small things like, okay, I might have been wrong about star formation models based on the tumor criterion. That's a boring one. A more interesting one is kind of, okay, how likely do I think global disasters are? If that is going up or down, that might matter quite a bit. Or indeed, it might be, oh, I realize this problem doesn't matter at all. I can just drop it.
Yeah, yeah. I
So
should
what about you?
list that. I should list new things I learn every day. That would be cool.
I think it's really awesome both to discover it's a little bit like thankfulness therapy. There is this realization that gratitude is a very healing emotion. So actually every day writing down things you're grateful for has a very good effect, not just for Thanksgiving, but actually every day. It really improves mood and stops depression, etc. But maybe one should have also this writing down stuff you were surprised by today or learned today.
Yeah. And I learned today from you is it's nice to get to know people from different cultures. And empathy is a universal human trait.
Yeah, and I think it's a really cool trait. It's even hard to figure out how do we do it. There's a lot of brain circuitry probably involved, but yet we want to build machines that can help us be empathic better, and we probably need that skill taught in school.
Yeah. Can you still hear me?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's always the excitement. We have to be empathic across various Zoom and Skype and Meet links. But one of the good things about this virtualization is, of course, we actually have ended up much more globalized.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool.
Now I just wonder if one could have automatic translation, so we could be chatting with somebody in China or India too, in their native language, and get it translated.
That would be cool. I think universal translators don't work because people talk too fast and their voices are unique.
Yeah.
Because if you watch those UN meetings, they have to talk like 1 or 2 sentences at a time.
Oh yeah, it gets very stilted. Not that we're not stilted from the start quite a lot of the speeches, but it is really annoying. But that technology, if it existed, would probably change the world quite a bit. I think it's generally a great idea to just look around for stuff that if this got fixed, the world would become much better, or at least much different. That's kind of a way of being properly ambitious.
Yeah, in Star Trek, when someone invented the universal translator, it removed cultural barriers, which implies language is one of them, and it unified humanity. And I thought, well, that seems realistic if people could communicate with each other easily.
Yeah, now we just need to construct that translator, and well, the natural language people with the neural network seem to be doing a decent job, but it's gonna be a while.
Yeah, yeah.
But the anti-gravity, on the other hand, that might be easier in some sense, because if it exists in some practical sense, presumably it's more based on physics rather than human psychology and sociology, which are really complex. While physics is probably, it might be super weird, but I doubt it's going to be that complex.
Yeah, hopefully I'll figure it out one day.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of nice, actually, that physics seems to become simpler and simpler, but weirder and weirder as you go deeper into it.
Yep, yes. Science is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it is. But then on the other hand, if you go into screenwriting and the humanity, you're going to realize, okay, you must just get weirder and weirder, more and more complex the more you get to know them.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I know you're busy, you got somewhere to go. So do you have any closing remarks?
I have to head off to yet another meeting, but I love this conversation, and I think this is a great format for a podcast, actually. Not just blabbering on, but actually thinking, where do we want to go from here?
Yeah, I think I'll start a podcast. That's something I can do.
Yeah, cool.
Okay.
Well, in that case, I'll stop here and say thank you very much. Yeah, take care.
Thank you. You too. Bye.